Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePapier-mâché.com, and in my last video I gave you a sneak peek of the pattern that I was making, the 3D pattern for a papier-mâché baby elephant head. But after I got the papier-mâché on that particular pattern, I went back and I spent a few more days tweaking the pattern to get it just exactly the way I wanted it. Basically, I wanted her happier. We've been having a lot of kind of negative news, should I call it, in the world news lately. And I've just decided that the best way to counteract it is to fill my house up with really happy creatures. A whole lot of smiles on the wall. That's got to be really good medicine. If you'd like to make a baby elephant of your own using my pattern, you can download it from my website. I'll put a link to it down below. There is going to be a small charge for this one because the design process took me so long. Now, after the final pattern was put together, I covered it with masking tape so that the papier-mâché would stick to it. And then I covered it with a really, really thin layer, almost a paper-thin layer of papier-mâché clay. Now, you could also use paper strips and paste. That's how I made the Indian elephant. That's also how I made the bullfrog and the jackrabbits using the 3D patterns. We know it works, but I just was really anxious to see how it would turn out. And the papier-mâché clay is definitely faster than traditional paper strips and paste. Just to make it go even faster, I made a little tool out of the top of a yogurt container, and it really helps to smooth the papier-mâché clay. When you get it wet, it slides right over the rounder forms without sticking. And then I did put a final skin on her using paper towels, just because it's got little bumpy textures on it, and it looks really a lot like elephant skin. So now my first layer of papier-mâché clay is dry, and I can add the second layer. This is going to be put on over this dry skin, and I'm going to use paper toweling over the papier-mâché clay in order to get my bumps. I did change the recipe. This is the papier-mâché clay recipe. The only change that I made is I'm using 1 cup of the Elmer's glue instead of 3/4 of a cup. So it's just an extra 1/4 cup of glue. I wanted it really sticky to make sure that the paper towel hangs on. Now, the other thing I need to do before anything else is to take the 2 plies apart. This is a heavy paper towel. I think it's Bounty, probably. I don't know, whatever it was at the store. I just grabbed some. And you need to take the 2 plies apart. The reason for that is if you use paper towels as papier-mâché without taking the 2 plies apart, then as soon as it gets wet, the top part is going to come off anyway. And then you have it delaminated, but usually just kind of curling up in weird ways, and you don't like that. I promise you won't like it. It's very disappointing. I've done that myself. Now that you have 2 layers, you've got 4 different textures. It looks really weird if you mix up all 4 patterns. So decide which one you're going to use. I'm going to use the bumps from the back. If you're watching this video before you put together the pattern, you can use the half that you're not going to use to stuff on the inside of the trunk, and that will help support it when you're adding the papier-mâché clay. Be sure to look at the instructions that come with the pattern so you understand what that meant. So I'm going to take these apart. I'm going to tear the edges off. This is going to take a while. And then I'm going to do the back of my elephant's ears. There's really no wrinkles on the back, but it still needs to get done anyway just to get the texture so it's all the same. And then as soon as the back of the ears were dry, I can work on the wrinkles. I laid the paper over the papier-mâché clay flat at first, just to make sure that the clay comes into contact with all of the paper, and then I squished it all up, paper and clay together, so that you can have some depth to the wrinkles. I looked at a lot of photographs to see how the wrinkles drape over the complex shapes around the heavy ear muscle. That was the most complex area on the whole entire elephant. The eyes are done the same way as everything else. I just made the elephant's eyes a little larger than a real baby elephant's eyes would be. That's just a personal thing that I wanted to do, but be sure to look at photographs so that you can decide how you want your eyes to look. I kept working on the paper towels and covered the entire head, and then when that was completely dry, I added a really thin coat of homemade gesso. You can find the recipe on my blog, and I just did a video on it too. You don't really need a recipe, it's just joint compound and white glue. The gesso brought the textures together, and I used it as a paste in places where I needed another small piece of paper towel, and in some places where I hadn't really stuck the original pieces down quite right. Once the gesso was dry, it really looked nice. It helped clean up the texture on the elephant and really brought everything together. And now it was time to add some color. I did it the easy way. I bought a can of gray primer in a spray can. I don't usually use spray can paint, but in this case it's all gray, so I decided that was the way to go. The paint dries really fast, so when I brought her back upstairs, I painted the eyes. I used acrylic paint, gel medium, black tissue paper for the pupils, and a really fine black felt tip pen. Do a Google search, like I said, for elephant eyes. You want to make sure that you know what they look like before you start painting. And then I remembered that I had some stick-on fake eyelashes in a drawer in the studio. I bought them a long time ago for some other project, but I never used them. And since my elephant's eyes are larger than real baby elephant's eyes, I thought that the eyelashes might make it kind of an interesting touch and really bring them out. I don't think the self-stick glue stuff on the eyelashes is going to stick permanently, so I am going to overlap that area with the varnish when I put the final varnish on there. I'm hoping that they'll make sure that the eyelashes stay where they belong. And for the very last step, I mixed a very small amount of burnt umber acrylic paint with the Golden brand acrylic glazing liquid, and I just brushed it on and pulled it off again with a paper towel. I did that because I wanted to warm up the gray and give it a little bit more visual interest and to bring out those wrinkles. And then I just painted the eyes with some clear fingernail polish just to make them shiny. Now the last thing I have to do is put a light coat of matte acrylic varnish. I'll probably put 2 coats as a matter of fact. I want to seal her up really nicely. And then I'm just going to hang her on the wall and add her to my collection. I really like the way she came out. Now, like I said before, if you'd like to make an elephant of your own, the pattern is on my website. You can download it. I'll put a link to it down below. And if you do make one, please come back to the website and post a photo so I can see how it turned out. That's it for today. Come visit me, ultimatepapier-mâché.com. I'll see you there.